It was 3:07 a.m. when the screams began. Inside a crumbling farmhouse in Hollow Creek, North Carolina, 27-year-old Emily Rhodes clutched her phone with trembling hands. She whispered into the receiver, "Please, someone's in the house." But when the 911 operator asked for her location, Emily froze. The lights flickered out, leaving her in pitch-black silence. She could hear the footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming down the hallway. Her dog, Max, whimpered and bolted into the closet. Emily pressed herself against the wall, holding her breath. Then came the voice. A whisper, soft and wet, right next to her ear. "You shouldn't have come back." Her phone slipped from her shaking hand. The line went dead. That was the last time anyone ever heard Emily Rhodes' voice. What happened that night in Hollow Creek became one of the most disturbing unsolved hauntings in American history, a case so strange that even the Warrens themselves refused to step foot on the property again. But to understand why, we have to go back. Back to where it all began. 3 months earlier, Emily wasn't looking for trouble. She was just looking for a fresh start. After a messy breakup and losing her job in Charlotte, she inherited a small piece of land from her late uncle, a rundown farmhouse on the edge of Hollow Creek. Locals said it had been empty for over 30 years, ever since her uncle vanished without a trace. Emily didn't believe in ghost stories. She called them rural legends. And when her best friend Lena warned her that the house was bad luck, Emily laughed it off. "It's just wood and nails," she said. "Nothing more." But Hollow Creek wasn't like other towns. The house sat half swallowed by the forest, its roof sagging, windows boarded. The mailbox still read Rhodes, written in faded red paint. Inside, dust covered everything, except for one thing. A mirror. It was an antique, tall and framed in dark oak. The glass was spotless, almost too clean, as if someone had been taking care of it. Emily noticed her reflection looked slightly off. Like her smile came half a second after she moved. She shivered, closed the curtain, and told herself it was just her imagination. That night she dreamed she was standing in front of the mirror again. Only this time, her reflection wasn't smiling back. It was frowning, eyes wide open, mouth whispering something she couldn't hear. When she woke up, the mirror had been moved. It was now standing at the foot of her bed. Emily tried to convince herself she must have done it half asleep. But something about the way it faced her, like it was watching, made her stomach twist. The next morning, she found muddy footprints on the porch. Small, bare, and leading right to her door. Lena came over that afternoon to help clean. She laughed when Emily told her about the mirror. "You're just freaking yourself out," she said. "It's an old house. Everything creaks and moves." But that night, while they were unpacking, Lena saw it too. They were in the kitchen when the power flickered. For a moment, everything went black, and in that flash, Lena swore she saw someone standing behind Emily in the reflection of the glass cabinet door. When the lights came back, no one was there. They decided to sleep in the same room, just in case. But at 2:33 a.m., a loud thud echoed from the hallway. Then another. Emily sat up, holding a flashlight. The sound came again, closer now, slow, dragging, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. She opened the door and shined her light down the hall. The mirror was there. It had moved again, now halfway down the hallway, facing her directly. Her heart pounded. "Lena," she whispered. "Did you?" But Lena was already staring, pale as paper. In the faint beam of the flashlight, Emily could see her reflection. But behind it, something else. A second figure. Standing just over her shoulder. Then the mirror cracked. A long, jagged line sliced through the glass like lightning. The air grew heavy, the temperature dropped, and the hallway filled with the faint smell of smoke. Emily stumbled backward, dragging Lena into the bedroom and locking the door. Either of them slept that night. When morning came, the mirror was gone. Only a single shard remained, lying right outside the door, pointing toward the woods. That's when Emily realized something chilling. The footsteps she'd heard in the night weren't coming toward the house. They were leading away. And whoever, or whatever, had left them, had taken the mirror with them. The next night, the knocking began. It started softly, just before midnight, 3 slow taps against the back door. Then silence. Emily froze, listening. The air was thick and heavy, the kind that makes every sound feel too close. Max, her dog, growled low, staring at the door with his fur standing on end. She waited, hoping it was just the wind. But then came 3 more knocks, louder this time. Knock. 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 Lena whispered. Don't open it. But Emily couldn't help it. She grabbed a flashlight and stepped closer, her hand trembling on the doorknob. Hello? She called out. Who's there? Nothing. Just the sound of crickets and the distant rush of the creek. She turned the knob. The door creaked open. No one was there. Only muddy footprints. Bare. Small. Leading away from the house again, toward the trees. Lena stepped beside her, her voice barely a breath. That's the same size as last night. They followed the prints with the flashlight, careful, silent. The forest swallowed them fast. The sound of the creek grew louder as they moved deeper into the dark. Then, something shimmered in the beam of light. It was the mirror. Standing upright in the middle of the woods, perfectly clean despite the rain. Emily felt her chest tighten. How did it get out here? Lena shook her head. We should go. But Emily stepped closer. The glass reflected the forest, twisted trees and moonlight, but her reflection wasn't there. She leaned in. What the? Her reflection appeared a second later, lagging again, and this time, it smiled. Emily stumbled back, tripping over a root. Lena grabbed her arm, pulling her up. The air around them turned icy. Then came the whisper again. The same voice from the first night. You shouldn't have come back. They ran. Neither looked back until they reached the house. When Emily turned to shut the door, she saw the mirror at the edge of the clearing. It had moved closer. By morning, it was back in the living room. That day, Emily tried to call the county office, thinking maybe her uncle's disappearance had some kind of police report. The clerk on the other end went quiet when she said the address. Ma'am, you need to leave that property, the woman finally said. That house isn't safe. Emily asked why. The woman hesitated. Then whispered, because it's not the first time people have disappeared there. The call disconnected. Emily sat in silence, staring at the phone. Then she heard something faint, a slow creaking sound coming from upstairs. Lena was still asleep on the couch, so Emily grabbed the flashlight and climbed the staircase. The noise was coming from her uncle's old study, a door she hadn't opened yet. The handle was cold. She pushed it open. Inside, the room was covered in dust. Bookshelves lined the walls. But on the desk, something stood out, a journal. Her uncle's handwriting scrawled across the front. Hollow Creek Observations. She flipped through the pages. At first, they looked like normal notes. Weather, plant growth, strange animal sightings. But then the entries got darker. The mirror moved again. Voices at night. They know my name. Do not look directly into the glass after midnight. The last entry read. If anyone finds this, it's not a haunting. It's a door. Don't let it open. The moment she finished reading, the bedroom door slammed shut behind her. Emily spun around, flashlight shaking. Lena? No answer. Then she heard it, the faint sound of whispering, coming from the mirror that now stood in the corner of the study. She hadn't noticed it before. Its surface rippled like water. And then, a hand pressed against the inside of the glass. It was pale. Human. Emily screamed and ran for the door, slamming into it until it burst open. She tumbled down the stairs, hitting the floor hard. Lena was gone. Only Max remained, barking at the top of the stairs. Emily looked up, and froze. Lena was standing in the doorway of the study, completely still. Her eyes were open but blank. Lena! Emily shouted. Come down! Lena didn't move. She turned her head slightly, just enough for the light to hit her face. And that's when Emily saw it. The reflection. Behind Lena, in the mirror, was Emily's face, smiling back at her. Emily's real face twisted in horror as her reflection raised a hand and waved. Then the mirror cracked again. And Lena fell forward, lifeless, tumbling down the stairs. Emily crawled toward her, shaking her, begging her to wake up. But Lena's eyes stared straight ahead, wide open, pupils dilated. On the back of her hand was a smear of black ash. And carved into the floor beside her body were 3 words, burned into the wood. "She's next!" Emily backed away, shaking, whispering, "No," over and over. Outside, thunder rolled. The windows began to rattle. And upstairs, the sound of footsteps began again, slow, heavy, deliberate. Someone, or something, was coming down the stairs. Emily turned toward the front door, grabbing her keys and Max's leash. But before she could reach the handle, the hallway light flickered, and every bulb in the house shattered at once. The only light left was coming from the mirror. And in its reflection, Emily wasn't alone. The house was silent, the kind of silence that feels alive. Emily stood frozen in the darkness, staring at the faint glow coming from the mirror. Max growled low beside her, hackles raised, tail tucked. The reflection in the glass flickered like a dying light. Behind her, shadowy shapes moved, shifting, slow, just out of focus. Then she heard it again. Her uncle's voice. "Emily, help me!" Her stomach turned cold. The voice came from inside the mirror. She took a shaky step closer. "Uncle Thomas?" The reflection steadied. A man's face appeared behind her own, pale, hollow eyes, lips trembling. It was him. "Don't let it out," he whispered. "It feeds on us." Before Emily could speak, a loud snap echoed from the kitchen, the sound of the back door bursting open. Wind howled through the house. Papers flew. The lights flickered, then burned bright white. Emily shielded her eyes. When she looked again, the reflection had changed. It wasn't her uncle anymore. It was her. But older, her skin gray, eyes black, mouth twisted into a grin. The reflection whispered, "You shouldn't have looked." Then, the glass rippled like water, and a hand shot out, gripping Emily's wrist. She screamed and tried to pull away, but the grip was ice cold and strong. The thing in the mirror began to crawl forward, its body half inside, half out, black liquid dripping from its hands. Emily grabbed the broken shard of glass from the floor and slashed at the arm. The mirror shattered with a sound like thunder, spraying shards across the room. The figure vanished. Everything went still. She collapsed to her knees, shaking, breathing hard. Max whimpered beside her. Then she noticed something on the floor, where the mirror had stood. A door. It wasn't there before, a narrow wooden hatch built into the floorboards, sealed with rusted nails. Carved into the wood were the same words from her uncle's journal. "Don't let it open." Emily stared at it, heart pounding. The boards around it were still vibrating, as if something beneath was moving. And then, knock, 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 from under the floor. She stumbled back, whispering, "No, no, no." But the knocking turned into pounding. The boards began to crack, splinters flying. A whisper rose from beneath, dozens of voices overlapping, calling her name. "Emily! Emily!" She ran to the door, fumbling for her keys. But the wind was so strong now it slammed the door shut before she could escape. The floor split open. And from the darkness below, something climbed out. It was a figure, tall, faceless, drenched in that same black liquid. Its movements were jerky, wrong, like someone walking underwater. The room filled with cold air and the smell of rot. Emily backed away, clutching the shard of glass. "Stay back!" she screamed. The figure tilted its head, mimicking her voice perfectly. "Stay back!" Then it lunged. Emily slashed, cutting through the air. The shard sliced through its arm, but instead of blood, the black liquid poured out, spreading across the floor like oil. The lights exploded. Max barked once, and went silent. Emily fell backward, hitting the ground hard. The thing stood over her now, its face inches from hers. Then, from somewhere deep inside the walls, a voice spoke. Her uncle again, faint, desperate. End it, Emily. Break the door. Burn it. She crawled toward the fireplace, grabbed the rusted oil lamp, and hurled it toward the open floor. The flames burst instantly, spreading fast across the wood. The figure screamed, a sound that wasn't human, as it burst into the same black smoke that had haunted the house since she arrived. Emily ran out the front door as the fire tore through the walls. She turned just in time to see the entire house engulfed in orange light. The mirror, what was left of it, shattered one last time, exploding outward with a sound like a thunderclap. And then, silence. The fire department arrived hours later. They found the house burned down to the foundation, nothing left standing but the fireplace. No bodies were found. Not Emily. Not Lena. Not even the dog. Just one thing survived. A single piece of glass. Perfectly clean. Lying in the ashes. The police placed it in evidence, sealed it in a box. But the next morning, the box was empty. And on the inside of the glass case, someone had written 3 words in the dust. I came back. Cut to static. A faint whisper. You shouldn't have come back.